Right, so cool. It's recording. If you give me a second, let me put you here, that over there. Cool. So, okay, I'll start. Hello, hi, I'm Estefano Ramirez, and this is another episode of the Web3 Growth Podcast. As you guys know, I'm the co-founder of Tonsma, CMO of Vemp Studios, and the host of this podcast. And today, we're going to talk about Web3 community acquisition strategies and KOLs with the very own Jessie Yang. So she previously was from BitMart and is now at Nimuru Chain. Hello, Jessie. How are you doing?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. Good to have you. So let's get started. So, if you tell us a bit about your background, Jessie. So sort of where you come from and how did you get into Web3?
hmm Sure. Yeah. So currently, I'm leading marketing for a layer one protocol called Nibiru Chain. And prior to that, I was working at BitMart, a centralized exchange, and I was leading growth marketing. Since 2018, I have worked with a couple crypto projects, which also includes a crypto wallet and IDO Launchpad. So I was introduced to like Bitcoin back in 2016, and I decided to go into crypto full time when I graduated from my MBA program in France. I think the driving factor in making that decision is seeing the emerging the talent pool in Web3 and the fast adoption of blockchain as a technology. I guess I consider myself a forward-thinking person and just feels like a no-brainer to join the crypto space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Your journey is very interesting because you've experienced it from both on the launchpad side, and you get to see, I guess, the good, the bad, and the ugly of crypto. Because you're obviously helping loads of different projects, and you also have experience from a centralized exchange perspective, which I think is quite unique. But yeah, no, really cool background. So let's start with community acquisition. So how do you approach it, and where do you start?
That's a great question. So I think you have to start by defining the target audience and where to find them, right? And I think an easy way to do that is to start tapping into your existing community and early supporters, understanding like where they coming from, how did they find out about your project, what attracted them, right, to your platform. These are low hanging fruits because you can then identify effective acquisition channels. From there, I would recommend probably like run an ambassador or referral program because those early supporters, they're most likely to help you spread the word since they're already interested in your project. Yeah. Another way maybe is to work with influencers because we usually influencers tend to work really well because they have trust established within their community. So they tend to have a like really big calling power in driving conversion. And the key to find this is to find somebody who can create a content highly relevant to your project and also have a high engagement. Then I think you already have a to success.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I would add a few maybe like go into a bit more detail there is so for me, I like to bring it back to basics and ask the question of why you're building a community. So once you figure that out, then you put the wheels in motion and look at creating a space where, you foster a group of people coming together and sharing value with each other. I think that's one of the key things of community, and it goes back to what you said about identifying who your users are and who your community members are. So I guess if I'm saying if we were to break it down into a framework, I take it back to the basics and use a flywheel funnel where look at creating awareness around your product or your solution, and obviously KOLs are really good for this. Then you generate interest out of that awareness, and then convert that interest into loyal community members. But I think it goes back to what you said: is in order for you to do all this, you need to really understand who your ideal community member is. So yeah, I definitely agree with all your points there. What are some mistakes then that people make when building communities?
I think the most common mistake is trying to do everything all at once and not having priorities set in the right order. So usually in early stage projects, you say people they're like everywhere, right? They're on Discord, they're on Telegram, Reddit, YouTube as well. And sometimes I think it's really detrimental to the project because then you're spreading yourself too thin and struggling for resources, and you just create chaos. Another mistake is like people tend to put too much focus on running incentivized campaigns instead of encouraging organic user-generated content and just promote loyalty and increase user stickiness, right? And lots of people just like to do airdrops, but when you just do airdrops and such, what you tend to do is like you attract mercenary people and not having people who are genuinely interested in your project.
Yeah, I think you've hit a few key things there. So I think airdrops, you need to be careful with airdrops because whilst they can be very successful to make a lot of noise, they can be quite detrimental in that you are attracting a specific type of person, basically a scalper or someone who's just trying to make some quick free money. So you really need to be careful and targeted with that approach, I think. Yeah, I think people always go for the lowest hanging fruit, and you're right. I remember with Vemp, we wanted to have a community everywhere, on Telegram, on Discord, on everywhere that you could get traffic. And you're absolutely right. We were so stretched. We just didn't know where to concentrate. We couldn't prioritize things, and it's very important actually to find that one channel that you want to focus on. Obviously, Telegram and Discord are like the main channels of crypto, but I think having like a single point where you could direct your community and have that single sort of community focus, I think that's really important actually. Another thing is, so I think founders, for me anyway, founders try to create a community that isn't really relevant to their project, and that brings really bad consequences because you need to like be really careful as to who you're bringing into your community, because you don't want to bring in the people that just want to make easy money and then leave, and then they don't actually provide any value to your community. You want to have a community where members create shared value. And that could be anything. So as an example for us, for them, because we're a studio, we foster shared value between the community by people playing games with each other, by people doing quests with each other, that sort of thing. Other communities could build other things. Like, for example, there's B2B communities, B2B marketing communities, and the way they build shared value is by allowing people to meet up with each other. And obviously you share contacts and all that sort of stuff. So it's just about that, identifying how to create shared value.
Exactly. And one thing I think people can do is also just to dive into the ecosystem and research how competitors are doing, because I think it's really important to understand your competitor and the landscape. So what kind of like platforms are they using? What kind of influencer are they working with, right? What kind of like engagement tools or campaigns are they doing? So understanding competitors and just benchmarking yourself with them, that speaks volume to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another thing to focus on. And another thing to focus on as well is not just looking at like the community channels and stuff like that, also looking at on-chain metrics. Look at like what your competitors, what their holders hold, and like what sort of commonalities you can find there, because more often than not you can find that there's some low-hanging fruit there in terms of partnerships. So yeah, so so at the beginning of your community acquisition, what do you track? So what are the positive signals? What are the metrics?
Yeah, again, I like to start by defining the key metrics. Low-hanging fruits, for example, on social media, we have the growth numbers, followers, that's really easy, visible and public. But then what I really like to do is to dig into the backend statistics, right? So to start with, website traffic, understand where people coming from, the bounce rate, the page usage. If you want to benchmark with competitors, you can also use a similar vibe, right? So that's something really easy to start with. But also when it comes to our platform, like building perps and like trading platform, digging into the backend the system and just like understand where is our largest community, right? I understand what kind of like product is most interesting to people from where. so that we can tailor-make the campaigns, right? So for example, right now we have a growing really large community from Russia and Ukraine, and they tend to be more interested in, let's say, perps trading, right? And but then we also have community from, let's say, Latin, in, from Colombia or Argentina. What we found out through the data is they're more interested in, using like staking, for example, or doing the farming and participating in NFT campaigns. This is, our experience taking from BitMart. So different users, like depending on their profile, they're interested in different products, and being able to offer different products based on their profile could, be very effective in driving conversion.
Yeah, I agree, definitely, because that way you're sort of saving marketing dollars, because you're not marketing, like you're matching what the person wants with what you're providing, rather than forcing someone to want something that they don't want. So yeah, and it's interesting because you're part of a layer one. So do you guys look at what sort of on-chain sort of metrics do you guys look at, and that sort of thing? Because I know some, like for example, Solana and most ones. I can't remember what it was. It was like something transaction per block or something per block that they look at for sort of, I guess, the on-chain version of engagement is sort of volume and unique wallets and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, so we're actually very early. We're just doing test night. We're gonna launch midnight around summertime.
Okay.
We actually built the first version of the stats dashboard from our testnet participants. So we have some basic like data being tracked at the moment, and you can look at total trading volume when it comes to perp, swapping volume as well, user acquisition and user engagement activities on different like products. So that's kind of like on-chain data that we're tracking at the moment.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So if I take it back to the question, some of the metrics that we usually track is so yes, similar to what you said, like net new members, member retention, average engagement, that sort of thing. And how about positive signals? Because so for me, a positive signal is something that you can't really track, or is very difficult to track, but it's like a I guess qualitative data that tells you that what you're doing is actually wrong or correct. So for example, for me, it's something like you need to be involved in the community to measure, the sentiment and feedback. And yeah, this for me is a positive signal. Do you guys track, or have you ever tracked like positive signals like that before?
Positive signals, I mean, again, comes down to like how do we really define positive signals, right? Obviously there's like community sentiment, so like we're always just like watching sentiments when it comes to community, what people are talking about us, what are they saying about us on social media, how do they comment, for example, even under our Twitter, right? So there's sentiments, but also I think a way to really track the growth, understanding where you're going, is to compare yourself with historical data, right? Not just user growth, but also engagement rate and maybe social mentions on the vibe. So you can compare with yourself like historically, but also compare yourself with competitors, and that would help you understand where you are in the whole picture. Because it's more, I guess, everything is relevant, right? I can also recommend a tool to do that. So for example, Meltwater is great to mention, to track social mentions. By mentions, I mean, like basically people are talking about your project online everywhere, across blogs, forums, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. So there are a couple of tools that you can track the social mentions and compare yourself. If your social mentions generally grow in a way, that's one of the positive signals, and also to see the sentiments.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what they do is social listening, which is basically like
exactly.
they just scour the internet to whatever keywords you ask it. And actually, that's something that I've been wanting to try for a while, is using social listening as a way of tracking positive signals, like you just mentioned. Yeah, which gave me an idea. But yeah, so how do you effectively use KOLs then for user acquisition? How do you find the right ones, and how do you position them and position your marketing for user acquisition?
Yeah. So I have worked with like over hundreds of influencer, and I feel before you start approaching influencers, you have to be clear on what is your end game here. Do you want to use them for just brand awareness, or do you want to use them to acquire users, or something else? And then you can go find the right KOLs for your like project. Um, but one thing I do pay attention is to like really measure the quality of their content and their engagement rate, because data can be easily manipulated these days. And oftentimes you just find random influencers online. Chances are it's not gonna, work out well. So that's one thing. Also, even the influencer personality and work style like matters a lot to me. Like because for me or for our project, we want to find somebody who has long-term potential to work with us. So that means somebody who's like responsive, right, and takes initiatives in offering like insights and even narratives. You asked about what kind of content we want them to create. And sometimes, to be honest, like we offer guidelines, but what I like to hear is for them to tell me how do they want to tell the story to their community from their perspective, and using a different sort of like a narrative, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, I mean, then it all comes down to performance tracking, reach agreement with KOL to, on deliverables, what kind of ROI you want to see. Maybe also call to action, right? I like call to action, because then apart from the content, you're also gaining visible, just like traction from the influencer side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so working with KOLs can be quite complicated. And I have this thing where I often mention it on Twitter, is that you need to know the difference between a KOL, an influencer, and a content creator. Because most projects, they're looking for influencers. So the influencer is just a lifestyle person or the shit poster that just is like the popular person, but they don't actually really provide any value. Like for example, a KOL would be like perhaps someone who has a lot of domain experience. So if you're within DeFi and you're working with a DeFi KOL, they've built an audience based around their knowledge on DeFi. So that's why it makes them a key opinion leader. And as for a content creator, those guys are usually like people that make informative content or engaging content or fun content. So for example, at BEM Studios, we use content creators to promote our games, for example, because you want to engage with people that can bring out the fun of your game to their audience. And I think another key point that you've mentioned there is making sure that whatever you're promoting with a KOL always has a call to action, and that to make sure that their traffic converts into your traffic and your community. Quite often I see projects not really even using call to actions, which is it's such a basic thing in marketing, but it's insane to think about because it's such a basic thing. Another thing is I feel like people or projects need to prepare their community and their mods for whenever someone is promoting the project. Because obviously you might have an influx of people, and because you have an influx of people, you don't want this new influx of people to attend the community and see, oh wow, this is actually quite a dead community. I'm not going to really I'm not going to engage. When it's a busy community, it's the likelihood of that person staying is quite high. So you need to make sure that you time it right. So another thing is make sure you coordinate your KOL promotion for whenever you have your busiest day of the week. So for example, one thing that I always tell our clients and what we do at BEMP is always have, like, you're not going to have an active community 24/7. It's impossible unless you have like I actually no, I think it's honestly impossible to have a 24/7 active community. The best thing you could do is find moments within the week that you can create and foster engagement, and whenever that time is, make sure that the KOL is promoting you and coordinate that with that time, so that these new people that come see that the server or the Telegram group is really, really active. And Another thing is you're paying these KOLs to promote you. Tell them to engage with your community as well. Bring them onto the Discord. Do an AMA, private AMA in your Discord. That sort of thing. Your community will most likely want to engage with this KOL or content creator or influencer. So it's just like another thing. It's like, for example, meeting a celebrity sometimes, especially when you get the big guys. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of your community members would love to be acknowledged or have a conversation with some of these KOLs, So yeah, those are some of the things there. How about some of the common mistakes then that founders make when approaching and working with KOLs?
I think it echoes to what you just said, right? Like not understanding what kind of KOL is right for their project, the kind of content they create, if it's relevant to you and your community. I also feel lots of people, they tend to go after the big fish, right? Always a tier one influencer in the space. So what you end up doing is paying them, let's say, tens of thousands of dollars, but having, let's say, 30 seconds integration on their channel, which doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't help you and your project at all. So it's just like waste of money and time, in my opinion. What I like to do is to really working, with like an army of micro influencers, having them understand like your project, your values, and basically align, interest and value to make sure, we're on the same page.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then having them push out content on a regular basis for you, engage with your community. So yeah, that's what I like to do. Also, when it comes to influencers, I tend to think, they are essentially just another VIP partnership of ours, right? So if you just treat influencer like they're disposable, or they're something just to get money and do stuff for you, then you end up like not making any friends or having any relationships at the end. So that's why I like to find the people who are sort of like already interested in the project, right? Showing like passion to do something for you. Oftentimes it's just like the result is much, much, much better than finding somebody random. And then from there, foster a long-lasting relationship with them. Make sure, they're happy and you're happy. And then it's like a win-win, situation. But yeah, I like to work with people who has potential to become long-term partners than, otherwise.
Yeah, I think you hit something in the beginning, which I also always tell people is, don't work with the big guys too soon, because first of all, they're gonna be hella expensive because you're a new project, you've not been covered by anyone that's noticeable or anyone that's big, so they'll find, obviously they want to protect their brand and all this sort of stuff, so they'll most likely be more expensive. But you don't want to work with these big guys too soon, because more often than not, the smaller guys are more flexible in working with you. They're more like you just said, they want to build a partnership, they want to know more about you, and they want to actually grow with you. I think it makes sense for the bigger guys to work with projects that are somewhat established, and obviously have the budget to work with those guys and that sort of thing. I think another common mistake is founders don't really do their due diligence. Like, they don't look at, okay, how is their community botted? Is their audience botted? When they post a tweet and they have like 1 million followers, how many people view it? Because there's a KOL that we've worked with in the past, and I always mention this example, but when Elon Musk did the whole, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of bots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we worked with an influencer. He had 1.2 million followers, and when Elon Musk did that, those 1.2 million followers out of a sudden were like 400K, and it just goes to show like over 50% of your following was just completely fake, and you were selling us this like amazing image that you just didn't have. And he botted his engagement and his and this sort of stuff as well. This was before tweet views were available, but I'm happy that tweet views are available now, because that's a really good way of you doing the diligence. If someone has like 10,000 followers and only 10 people view the tweet, that's really bad. Engagement, like liking and retweeting I can understand, but viewing, it's a totally different, like, it's a good metric to track. I think another thing is, and you mentioned this, is working with relevant KOLs. You have to, like, if you're a DeFi protocol, work with DeFi guys. If your product is around trading, then work with the trading guys. Don't, like, you know, make sure that you match the style and content of the KOL to what you're doing. And don't just simply just use a KOL without a proper strategy. This is actually quite a common mistake people make, is I'm going to engage with this guy because I see that he has a lot of following, and I see that he's done really well for other projects, and I'm just going to use him on its own. You know, you need to think about the messaging, you need to think about the content strategy, you need to think about how that fits in with your community, all the stuff that I mentioned previously. And I think that's a common thing that the founders do. Yeah, so how do you scout for KOLs, and how do you choose the right ones? I guess, what's, like, do you have like a checklist of due diligence or something like that?
There are a couple ways. One thing I like to do to start with, if without any tools or anything, just to start asking around in my network, right? So usually you have investors, you have partners, you even have a community members who will always make recommendations to you, what kind of influencer to work with. So I like to start with introductions, because then, you know, they're already interested, and there's also existing relationship. So everything's easier, right? These are just the low-hanging fruits. But if you don't know anybody and you just want to start with, a way to scale is to use some platforms. So there's something called Luna Crush, right? I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
You go on there and you can actually find like social influencers by, you know, just by keywords. So you can just type into the protocol. You can type in, for example, Avalanche or Cosmo, right? And then a bunch of people will basically pop up on the screen and showing you, you know, their followers, engagement rate. Often it's also, there's ranking as well. So you can check who is relevant to your content. So there's a good way to do it. There's another one called Appfluence. I think it's also a popular one. You pay subscription fee, and then what I like about
Appfluence.
Yeah. So what I like is actually like subscription service software, right? What I like about Affluence is you can actually narrow down the influencer you want by not just using keyword, but also matching platforms, right? Their following size, the language they speak, the region they're based in. So you can really target down to the people you want to target, and also cross out social platforms. So I think for somebody who just starting with influencer marketing and don't have any resources or contacts, maybe try using some tools to get started with. I think that would be a good way. Yeah, what else? I think, how do we choose the right KOLs? I feel like we'll already touch a lot on that part, right? Making sure they're relevant, the engagement, and not just like going after the tier one right off the bat. But starting with something that is, you know, suitable to your project and also your budget as well.
Yeah. One thing that I definitely agree with everything you said there. But one thing I would definitely add is another easy way of engaging with KOLs is with working with them, actually, because more often when you reach out to them, they don't reply because obviously they have so much demand and you're just brand new. It's actually engaging with their content. The more you engage with their content in a thoughtful way, by the way, not just like, you know, liking and one word replies, not that sort of thing. Like, you're meant to be social on a social media platform. So the more social you are with them and the more value you add to their sort of content, the more familiar that they'll get with you and the easier it is to work with them in the future, kind of thing. But yeah, so
what do you think about working with agency?
So I think there's pros and cons. Obviously, the biggest con is obviously the how expensive it is, but the pros are that working with an agency, they have built the experience over time of what KOLs you need. they have obviously quite a large roster of trusted KOLs that they have proved that they have worked with before. So they've, because one of the things from a project perspective, because I can look at it from a point of view of a project and an agency, because obviously I'm part of both. But from a project perspective, it's a lot riskier to work with someone you've not worked with in the past. So I would more often prefer to use a KOL agency, because they have worked with those people before in the past, and you can ask them questions like, okay, prove to me that they've delivered stuff in the past. Where have they delivered? That sort of thing. Another thing is, KOL management is such a heavy task, and what I mean by that is these guys have personalities. These guys have personalities and can sometimes be quite demanding, and can sometimes the negotiations can be insane as well. So that is a bit of heavy lifting that agencies can take care of. And honestly, if you have the budget, always go for. I would much rather go for a KOL agency, because and obviously KOL agencies get packages as well, because they've already have this established relationship with the KOLs, and they work out deals, which actually the packages you get from them makes it cost effective. Whereas if you start, finding out guys and trying to try to negotiate with them and that sort of thing. Like, for example, when I just started at Vemp, for me to find KOLs, it took me ages, and the due diligence I had to do, and trying to come up with negotiations as to how many tweets and videos, what to say, all this other stuff. And then when we started working with agencies, it was just so much better. It like, all I needed to do is this is what I'm trying to promote. This is what I need. And these are the sort of guys that I'm looking for. And then they go out and they do the heavy lifting for you. They say, these are we're proposing this. Is this what you want to go for? And you do your due diligence of making sure that what they offered is good enough for the money that you're paying. And yeah, it's a seamless process. But the only thing I have to say though is it's very difficult to find a good agency. There's a lot of shit agencies. But yeah, if you're a good agency, you're definitely it's easy to stand out, essentially, because the bar is so low. But yeah, if you have budget, definitely work with a good agency for sure. So what metrics of success do you track with KOLs?
Easy ones. There's always like views, right? Clicks, comments. Also referrals, if there is any URL that you can track. But yeah, personally, also like when they are being just like responsive, like you said, it can be lots of hustle just to negotiate and follow up with KOL on deliverables. So if somebody's like, I know if this influencer is responsive and reliable, chances are I tend to work with this guy more than other people, right? Especially when you have like a campaign coming up and you need it to be delivered on time. You really need to work with people who are responsible, and so that they don't mess you up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when where the agency side comes in, where they already have a working relationship and stuff. Yeah. I think so for us is like you just said, for me it depends on the objective of the campaign and what you want to achieve. So we like to use UTM tracking links, obviously, to measure how much traffic a KOL is bringing us to either a landing page or that sort of thing, and then use analytics platform to figure out what percentage converted into community members and that sort of thing. It gets a lot more complicated when it comes to like NFT sales, and especially for centralized exchange conversions and stuff. That becomes a bit more tricky. But for NFT specifically, if you have your own minting page, I guess with UTM tracking links you could sort of figure it out. And with Google Analytics and that sort of thing, you could sort of figure out what KOL brought you traffic and actually got you conversions. But it's interesting because in the Web2 space, there are tools that you use to track whether a specific channel, basically attribution tools, and that's something that hasn't been thoroughly explored in Web3, but I'm sure some people are coming up with solutions as we speak, which is quite exciting. But yeah, I'm curious actually, from the exchange side, have you guys ever considered like providing KOLs and or like, you know how affiliates, they have their own link.
Mm.
Do exchanges sort of even think about that sort of thing?
You mean to have a kind of like a program for influencer?
Yeah, like say for example, if I'm
having dashboard.
yeah, like if I'm a project and I'm listing on BitMart, I would love to get like a link that I could share with KOLs to know what conversion came from that KOL. Something like that would be really good.
Yeah, I would love to have something like that, but also depending on, like the kind of platforms they are on, right? YouTubers versus people on TikTok versus people on Instagram are just like different, attribution when it comes to that. So oftentimes we find what we need to done. That's also part of running the marketing, because it's not just marketing, right? Like this is everything's data driven. So if we want to have some sort of insight, we have to go to the tech team and ask for like development on the product. It's the same actually for, I think, every project, Web2 or Web3, because it all comes down to development and how to track that attribution. Then you have to evaluate if you have the resources. And it's a shame to say that sometimes that the needs of marketing is not like, does not come on top, because the company has lots of other development work to do. So yeah, as a marketeer, I have been pushing, to get more just like insights and metrics from the tech team. And I think that's one of the really important tasks going forward.
Yeah, I think if I was to give like exchanges any feedback on the marketing side, because I've worked with loads of exchanges in the past with our token listings and stuff like that, and this is one of the key things in marketing that is like gold. And it's just simply asking like a pop-up question when you go to a tokens page or swapping page. Where did you hear about this token? And that literally just like an empty box, and it's optional to fill in. I think that would be like gold, because then it tells you, the consumer itself will tell you, oh, I heard from these guys from this KOL or that sort of thing. And exchanges could probably even sell that data.
I know exchanges are not doing a great work when it comes to that. Like, for example, exchanges could run like user survey on a regular basis, just to blast out email newsletter to your community and ask them, how do they know certain project, or, where do they come from? So that would help identify the acquisition channel. But not enough people are doing that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you use any tools at the moment for like community management or KOL management?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of like a project, right? Or the objective. One thing I really like on social is Gleam. I don't know if you've heard of it, Gleam.
Yeah, we use Gleam as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really effective to just assign tasks to people, to have people, follow on social and visit different pages and things like that. Another thing we use for Discord is Cruise Rate. This thing's also very popular. Having the quest and leadership bot really, just like encourage the community to become a part of it and to get involved. What else? Yeah, I like the, many different games, little mini games on Discord, and you can simply do that by just like set up a bots on Discord. Apart from that, when it comes to community management and KOL management, we actually utilize Notion a lot, just having a database. I think Notion is undervalued, right? If you don't really know about Notion, you think it's just like another platform for like note-taking and dragging down like stuff. But Notion had this amazing function that you can use for a master database. So it keeps popping up all the data that you need, and you can really have a holistic view of all like everything. So I tend to use Asian to, just keep track of, for example, who are the active like members in our community and who are the influencers, who are our partners. like what is our engagement status, where are we, what did we discuss last time, and how do we go forward. You can also just store all the proposals you receive there. So it just gives me like a holistic view of everything that I need to keep track of.
Yeah, I've been told about Notion before. I need to give it a go. We use a mixture of tools over here. So we use Monday.com, and we use but this is just for like business management stuff. One of the, I always mention these guys, and I promise I'm not getting paid by them. I should be. Ahoy Connect. Ahoy Connect is really good at community management. It gives you so many good insights. So I was speaking about qualitative signals and positive signals. So their tool actually has like this sentiment action where I think it uses AI, but it sort of reads the conversation, and it sees, okay, this week this was what people mostly spoke about. This is the sentiment. It has like a scale of whether it was positive or negative. And it gives you really good insights into what your community is thinking without you having to be fully involved, which is it's really good. And then there's another one called Interact, which is being built at the moment, but it's basically like a native Web3 CRM. And what I like most about these guys is that you can automate airdrops and all that sort of stuff. Like if you build a quest and you say, do this other on-chain interaction, like stake X amount of tokens, and all that good stuff. The platform itself verifies that you've done that, the person has completed the quest, and therefore can claim either the airdrop or the reward that they would claim. I think most people at the moment would do that quite manually. It's a pretty cool tool. I've been looking forward to trying Quest as well. Quest I've heard is quite good. But yeah, I think I'm going to give. Did you say it was Affluence, the KOL tool?
Yeah, Affluence.
Okay. Cool.
Another two is Pope, POAP. So that's like you can use it to basically upload your artwork and generate NFT. So, and you can drop the NFT as a reward, right, in your events or your campaigns. I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I think that's sort of the end of the podcast. I usually like to end the podcast with asking guests a question about, what sort of topics would you like to learn about in our future episodes?
Yeah, what do you have in mind?
Some people actually, some people ask for like, oh, I would love to know like sort of regulations and what we can get away with in terms of marketing or not. Other people like to know more about revenue, how people are going about measuring NFT revenue and token sales revenue and that sort of thing. Other people just like to learn more about community and that sort of thing. But
yeah, I think because so we're building a DEX. Like for me, it's really interesting just to understand the whole DEX as a, in a bigger landscape. Like there are lots of different platforms offering similar products, right? So it comes down to how do we stand out, maybe from a marketing perspective. So for example, Frax Finance, they have been hugely successful, and it's really like small team, but it's a $1 billion projects right now, and they're able to offer just staking, swap, yield farming, right, and also stablecoin, really innovative design, and achieved a huge success with minimal marketing in a way. So what can we learn from the innovative, successful like DeFi projects in marketing? I think that would be highly interesting data.
Cool. I'll try to find someone that fits that profile, because actually I have been asked to do cover DeFi specific marketing before. So yeah, I'll definitely find someone to have as a guest. So where can people find out more about you, Jessie? Where can they get in touch with you?
Go on Nibiru, website, and check our LinkedIn. I'm there.
Awesome. Do you have any Twitter profile maybe, or anything, or anything like that?
Yeah. On Twitter, I'm at Jess the Rover.
Cool.
It's a funny name, but yeah, it's easy to remember.
I'll add your LinkedIn and that sort of thing on the show notes so people can just find it easily. But yeah, thank you for coming. For those who are listening, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to. You know, as it really helps the show. And yeah, thank you very much for coming, Jessie. I'm hoping to have you again soon.
Thank you.
Right.